for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Bittt.tb. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Matt Ohayon with you on another Friday evening edition of the Sick Podcast. That's right. We don't take breaks here at the Sick Podcast. We go all the way through the summer. No days off. Okay, the Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group is a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Are you looking for the ultimate entertainment destination? Playground is your ticket to nonstop thrills. Experience heart-pumping gaming action and a world-class poker experience. Playground is the 2025 winner of the Fan Choice Best Poker Room at the Global Poker Awards. Indulge your taste buds at our incredible restaurants, then let loose with live music and electrifying DJs, and enjoy unmatched customer service just minutes away from downtown Montreal, right across the Mercier Bridge. Why settle for the ordinary when you can have the extraordinary? Playground, it's all here. Visit playground.ca to discover more. We're also brought to you by Bittt Tibi Beer. Bittt Tibi has launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for those hot summer days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% alcohol per can. Available in packs of 6 and 12 in grocery stores and dépanneurs across the province of Quebec. Ultra light and ultra refreshing. And finally, by Betway. Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is available only for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario. You must be 18 years or older. Please play responsibly. It's funny. We had a little chat right before the show. And by a little chat, I mean 2-second chat. I just said, man, there's a whole lot of... not a whole lot to talk about today, but that's why I set off here at the Sick Podcast. So without further ado, here he is. He is my usual Friday guest, Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. Stu, how you doing?
I'm doing great. We'll always find stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's Montreal. There's always stuff to talk about. And lo and behold, listen, our own Tony Marinaro had the newest Montreal Canadien, Joe Veleno, on an episode of the Sick Podcast earlier this week. And he also had Logan Mailloux, I guess the newest non-member of the Montreal Canadiens.
That's 2 good interviews you got.
That's right. And we don't stop here. So why should today be different than any other? So I guess the big news story of the week was Joe Veleno, but something else, happened, which was the NHL schedule release. And this year it was a little more interesting than others because of the return of Olympic hockey, the best on best, and the players will be going. So there's a big pause in the middle of the season. Of course, Montreal is Montreal. People will always find things to talk about in a Habs angle. And what I found most interesting this year is that while every team has a condensed schedule, the Canadiens seem to have it pretty rough. They have 17 back-to-backs. I believe only 3 of them are pure home games. And I did a little digging. And last year, the Canadiens actually had 14 back-to-backs, which, it's kind of a similarity between the 2 years was that they had the Olympic break. They have the Olympic break this year. And then they had the 4 Nations break. So 14 last year, they went 13, 11, and 4. We also heard a lot of Martin St. Louis saying how tired the Canadiens were, how the schedule was impacting them. do you think that with 17 back-to-back games, including the 2 to open the season against Toronto and Detroit, do you think that excuse will fall on deaf ears if for Canadiens fans if Martin St. Louis decides to use that during the season?
Pretty much, I think. I mean, when I was thinking of the schedule and with the Olympic break, I was thinking like the Florida Panthers. The Habs have been off for 3 months now, basically, right? The Panthers have been off for a few weeks. And then a lot of the Panthers guys are going to be playing at the Olympics also. I mean, it's an incredible grind. But for the Canadiens, I mean, part of the reason for all the back-to-backs, teams send the dates that their buildings are available and whatnot, and the Bell Center is busy many, many nights. I also request that they be away over Christmas and New Year's, and they will be again this year. They have a 7-game road trip over Christmas and New Year's. That's because they want to bring in Cirque du Soleil or whatever it is at the Bell Center to make more money. So part of it is their own doing with the way the schedule gets set up and limited dates and trying to squeeze all the games in, especially with the 2-week Olympic break. They did much. You mentioned their record last season, which wasn't bad. They had a winning record in back-to-backs. The season before, I forget, they were pretty bad the season before. The reason why they finished as low down in the standings as they did. But yeah, for a team that's eliminated early in the playoffs, these guys have been off for a long time. They've had a long break. They should be rested and ready to go when the season starts. And then they're going to get the Olympic break also. There won't be that many Canadiens players, I don't think, playing at the Olympics. So that'll give them another break. But for me, it's more of a concern for teams like the Panthers and teams that are going to have 5, 6, maybe 7 guys playing in the Olympics after, playing in the Four Nations last season and going all the way in the Stanley Cup. And it's a lot of hockey. It's a lot to ask for these guys. When you think about it, factor in exhibition games and everything, these guys are playing well over 100 games a year, which is crazy for hockey when you think about it. It always amazes me how these playoff teams can do it every second night for 2 months, and then we find out when it's over all the injuries that these guys played through. So for the Canadiens, I don't think it's going to be a valid excuse for them moving forward. I think the teams with the lowest back-to-backs have 12, and most of them are like 14, 15. So it's not a huge difference from the other teams.
Yeah, and if you really take a deep dive into the back-to-backs, listen, travel is travel, but you're also getting paid millions of dollars to play a game for a living. So, I mean, if you look at a lot of them, I think in the month of, is it December or January, where it's every Saturday, Sunday, they are playing. It's one of the two, I think. And if you take a quick look, yes, they're traveling in between games, but it's, they're going from Montreal to New York and Montreal to Boston, and it's really not far distances. And again,
we compare with the travel schedule some of the West Coast teams have.
Exactly.
The Canadiens don't really have a lot to complain about, in my opinion.
Exactly. And the one thing that I feel like they could wager a complaint is that, and hey, listen, like you said, the Bell Center is a busy place, is that they only have their longest homestand is only 4 games. And I found that quite surprising because 4 games is really nothing. I mean, if you think about it, think of how many road trips the Canadiens go on every single year, including, you said, they have a 7-game road trip through Christmas and New Year's. I mean, 4 games was pretty surprising to me.
Yeah, well, I'm looking here too with Florida, just that the Florida has 13 back-to-backs this season. San Jose has 16, and they have a tougher travel schedule than the Canadiens mileage-wise anyway. But and they played. There's one of the months I looked at. They play 4 straight Saturdays on the road, which is sort of weird. I'm sure Habs season ticket holders aren't crazy about that. Saturday is always a favorite night for everybody to go to the Bell Center. But that's the way the schedule is. It's remarkable how these schedule makers are able to do it with 32 teams and building availabilities and setting up. Back-to-backs are just part of life in the NHL. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I think the 3 games in 4 nights is even harder than the back-to-backs. Those can be difficult in 3 different cities. Especially, but for the Canadiens, these guys, you said, they're paid a lot of money. They fly charter. They're well taken care of. These guys aren't out partying at night the way they used to be in the old days of Chris Chelios and Shane Corson and those guys. So it's a different world right now in the NHL.
So let's translate this into what this could look like into the season, because a grueling schedule means a lot of things can happen, and there are expectations on the concrete expectations, I think, on the Canadiens this year, at least from the fan base, because we haven't heard from upper management at the golf tournament yet. So I think baseline expectation is most fans expect them to make the playoffs again. I know I've said that there's a distinct possibility that they take a step back. What to you does a step back look like? Because let's just call it what it is. They're a younger team than they were last year. They lost veterans, and they have a grueling schedule. It's a grind. You factor in, listen, you never want injuries to happen, but they're bound to happen to some players. So with all this, what does a step back for the Canadiens look like? That would be of cause for concern.
I think falling well short of the playoffs. I think a reasonable goal going into this season is the goal they had last season, to be in the mix for the playoffs. As you said, they are younger. They're more talented, I think, right now. They have more talent, adding Dobson on the blue line and Bolduc and guys like that gives them more talent, more offensive talent. So I think being in the mix is a realistic goal again this season. I think what would be if they end up missing the playoffs by a point or two, I don't think it's a tragedy as far as this rebuild goes. I think they're ahead of schedule from last season. But if they were to follow, 6, 8, 10 points out of the playoffs and be out of it, not even playing meaningful games, that would be a disaster, I think, for the rebuild. That would be unacceptable if they're not even playing meaningful games late in the season.
It's funny because I was thinking about this. I've talked about this with you, and I've talked about this with Pierre Maguire, is that there are a lot of teams in the NHL this year that you could point to that are trying to take a step. And there's maybe one team that you could say is confidently actively trying to be bad. There are going to be bad teams. That's how it happens, but there aren't many teams that are actively trying to be bad that you could pinpoint other than Pittsburgh. San Jose's very young. Will they be bad? Maybe, probably, but they're not going to try, and they're not going to be they're not going to be an easy out by any means for any team with all that talent that they have. Chicago, they didn't do much this offseason, but seemingly they want to take a little bit of a step. Will they be bad? Probably. All this to say is that, would it be a complete and utter disaster if the Canadiens, things go awry in the first month and a half, and I want to be careful with how I frame this, because I don't want to just say throw in the towel on the season, but if they just decide to say, hey, we weren't able to get the second line center, and we've fallen really far behind. There's a supposed to be generational talent in Gavin McKenna coming up for the draft. Why don't we just sell off our rentals and we'll try. We made the playoffs last year after nobody thought we would in January. But let's just not pack it up, but let's expedite this process and maybe get full value for our players.
Yeah, and as the management of the Canadiens have said all along, players will dictate some of what they do, especially now at this stage in the rebuild. Right, we saw that at the trade deadline last year when they hung on to three guys they could have traded who were unrestricted free agents because they thought they had a chance to make it. And I think it's going to be a similar thing this year. I mean, they when Ken Hughes spoke with us after all, first it was Jeff Gorton spoke with us and said it wouldn't be a disappointment if they missed the playoffs next season. And then at the next press conference with Ken Hughes, I asked him about that. Mm-hmm. He said, well, this is, Gorton sending a message to the teams and fans and sort of lowering expectations a little bit. But he said, we want to make the playoffs. They want to be in the playoffs. There's no doubt about that this management team wants to be in. The players want to be in. The fans want them to be in. But it's not easy to make the playoffs in the NHL. The last 2 years, 91 points was enough. I mean, it's possible the Canadiens could have like 94 points this season, and it's not enough to get in. So they've reached the point now where they're acquiring assets as opposed that can play now as acquiring draft picks and prospects and whatnot. And we've seen that in the moves they've made this summer. They're trying to make this team better to make sure they don't take that big step back next season, and that they are in the mix for the playoffs, and that they can play those meaningful games down the stretch, like I said. So I think they've stuck to their plan all along, and right now they're in that stage where they're not interested in accumulating more draft picks that they're going to trade in the future. They're interested in acquiring players that can play right now. And it's interesting because after they acquired Veleno, I wrote a story about it. I looked up, the Canes now have 11 former first-round draft picks on their roster. That's half the team.
A ton of talent.
And only 2 of those guys are over 25. Laine's 27 and Matheson's 31. And the other guys, these are all first-round draft picks. Zachary Bolduc, Cole Caulfield, Kirby Dach, Ivan Demonov, Patrick Laine, Alex Newhook, Juraj Slafkovsky, Nick Suzuki, Noah Dobson, Caden Gooley, Mike Matheson. All former first-round draft picks. So there's a ton of talent there. And I think their plan, this management's plan, is to get all these young guys that are around 23, 24, 25, and let Marty St. Louis work with them and see what he can do with them. And that's Joe Veleno falls right into that, right? He's a guy that Kent Hughes obviously knows, and bringing him in adds another Cortex management client, which was Kent Hughes' old company, right? When he was a player agent. So the guys that they have now that are represented by Cortex are Matheson, Josh Anderson, Carrier, Newhook, Hudson, Jaden Struble. So they've got and Veleno. So they've got, these are guys, part of it you could say that he's doing a favor to guys who used to be his clients. Mm-hmm. If you want to look at it pessimistically, if you want to look at it optimistically, he's taking guys that he knows and people he knows. Carrier was one of those guys, right? Not many people knew much about Carrier when they went out and got him. Ken Hughes knew a lot about him. He was he was represented by their agency. And that worked out well. And I think they're trying to hope it's the same thing with Joe Veleno, who, the first kid from Quebec ever given exceptional status to play in the Quebec Junior League as a 15-year-old. Ken Hughes has known this kid for a long time, knows what he's capable of, and has seen what he's not capable of in the NHL, and hoping that Marty St. Louis can maybe bring out the talent's there. There's no doubt nobody gets drafted in the first round if you're not an incredibly talented hockey player. Now they're just hoping that Marty St. Louis can bring all these guys together. And it is, I mean, I need to look it up, but I can't imagine there's another team in the NHL that has 11 former first-round draft picks.
It's quite remarkable when you frame it like that. I knew the Canadiens had a lot of talent up front, but I didn't know it was 11 first-round draft picks on the roster, and that doesn't even include, arguably one of their best players in Lane Hutson. Who was second round,
or David Reinbacher, right? Another
exactly.
first-round pick, and Michael Hage, another first-round pick. So as I was mentioning before, they've loaded up on these guys over the first 3 years of this rebuild and been successful with it, right? I mean, Lane Hutson, they took a shot on Lane Hutson, and a lot of teams are kicking themselves now that he was still around late in the second round.
Mm-hmm. And so just looking, so this is interesting to me because a friend of mine wrote this to me the other day, and at first you kind of scoff at it because it's so ridiculous, but it's possible. I bet the Canadiens are not banking on this. He goes, and I like the Joe Veleno signing. I thought it was great. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great no risk move, and it gives you more center depth. It adds a left
shot center, big guy, or 6 foot, 200 pounds. Talent, as you mentioned, you don't become get exceptional status to play in junior as a 15-year-old if you're not a talented hockey player.
Well, that's it.
And a case of they're hoping Marty St. Louis defensively is like minus 65 for his career. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't been great on faceoffs, but they're looking at Marty St. Louis working with him. And to me, sort of the poster boy for Marty St. Louis working with players is, Cole Caulfield. Because you look at, Marty St. Louis has said right from the day one, really, you look at Cole Caulfield, how he couldn't score when Dominic Ducharme was a coach, right? And Marty comes in, all of a sudden he's scoring. And then Marty's saying, I'm not going to teach him how to score goals. I'm going to teach him to play better away from the puck to get more chances to score. And I'm going to turn him into a 200-foot hockey player. And that's exactly what he is now. Cole Caulfield, you watch him, he's a 200-foot hockey player. And that's what Joe Veleno has to become, right? Mm-hmm. To play in the NHL. That's his problem. He's not a 200-foot hockey player. And if anybody can do that, Marty St. Louis might be the coach. And that's why Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton brought Marty St. Louis in to coach these guys, despite having no NHL head coaching experience.
So the player that my friend messaged me about, and again, it seems a little ridiculous, but he goes, never forget, Dylan Holloway had 9 points in 38 games with the Edmonton Oilers, and then he just ended up putting up 63 the next season with the St. Louis Blues. Am I saying that can happen with Joe Veleno? No, but like you said, he did get exceptional status as a 15-year-old. to play in the queue as a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
So the talent is there. I like the addition, and it's crazy. I guess he's considered a little bit of a veteran on the team now because he's 25 years old. He's same age as Nick Suzuki and Noah Dobson. So he'll be a good anchor in the bottom half of that lineup.
And they're also they're hoping that homecoming thing. It worked with Mike Matheson, right? Mike Matheson, they brought him back home. Another guy who can't use with his agent from a young age, and Mike Matheson has played very well in Montreal since he came in here. And I think it also gives them, we were talking last week or the week before about line combinations and that, and it sort of gives them Marty St. Louis more options now, especially having another guy who can play center. Maybe Alex Newhook doesn't have to play center now.
Yep.
If Kirby Dach can't play center, then you move Newhook to the wing. Or if Kirby Dach's not going to be a center, you have another guy to fill that center role. And the other thing I find interesting about it, this is a line I wouldn't mind seeing. You could call it the third line, or you could call it the fourth line. I'd like to see Jake Evans take the Dvorak spot between Gallagher and Josh Anderson. I think, I mean, those guys, I know Gallagher and Jake Evans are best buddies. They used to drive together every day to practice. They're great friends. They've been together a long time. We already saw the chemistry between Anderson and Gallagher last year in Dvorak. That was maybe their most consistent line, a two-way line anyway. And I think with Jake Evans falling into that slot, if they put him into that slot, that's a line I'd like to see. I think that could be a really interesting line for them. And then if you put Veleno into center, you can play him between Bolduc and Newhook, maybe the third, fourth line, however you want to. Basically however they want to work it. I mean, the ice time will probably be about the same, but it really does give Marty St. Louis a lot more options with his 4 forward lines, especially if Veleno can show up at training camp in the preseason and show that he deserves a spot on the team as a third or fourth line center.
What's going to be interesting is just looking at the total amount of configurations is, are they going to what are going to be the configuration? Like, how many of these lines do they want to be playing together the full season? And what's the proper configuration? Because, if Patrick Laine has, 5 games without a goal, he'll probably slide down the lineup. But what if one of the lines is going well? What do you do? So what I like about the recent additions and what I really like about the bottom 6 of the Canadiens is, at least from NHL.com's latest projected lineup that they posted today, their bottom 6 was Alex Newhook centering, Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher. And then on the fourth line, it was Jake Evans centering Joe Veleno and Zach Bolduc. That is 6 very, very high energy, tenacious guys that I think, should you need to put any of them, can really play up in the lineup should you need. And I think the expectation will be for Zachary Bolduc to push for a top 6 spot. But any of those guys you can place with a Patrick Laine, and you'll say to those guys, hey, go do the dirty work, go fish out the puck and find Patrick in his spot and feed him the puck to shoot. And I think that would work too. It's a really good mishmash of players going on in the Canadiens, especially. It's not even really a mishmash of players in the bottom 6. That's because they're all those high energy guys, like I said.
The top lines, Suzuki with Slafkovsky and Caulfield, if that goes well, you figure they're going to stick together the whole season. Then you mentioned the second line, you could have Dach with Demidov on Laine or Dach with Demidov on Bolduc, depending what happens. So that a little mix and match going there, however the chemistry is going. But as I mentioned, that Evans, Gallagher, Anderson line, I think that's the line you could put together and just leave them. Like we did last year with Dvorak between those two guys. They basically played nearly the whole season together. And Gallagher spoke with me often back when he was struggling a couple of years ago, saying it was difficult for him switching lines all the time. You go back when he was playing with Danault and Tatar, that was one of the best 5-on-5 lines in the NHL. They were together all the time. So I think with Gallagher, he's much more effective when he's playing with guys on here's your line mates and go do your thing. And that's, again, you're going to have 3 veterans there. And Marty St. Louis, go do your thing. That line, forecheck, play well. And Jake Evans, I think, is a good replacement for Dvorak on that line. And as I said, I think now you have your first line and your fourth line. If you want to call it the fourth line, you just leave those 2 guys together, those 2 lines together, and you can mix and match with the other 2.
So with that bottom six, I mean, not that you can't be a top six player and play a penalty kill. A lot of people are concerned about the penalty kill and that they lost some good soldiers that were very good penalty killers. But I don't know. I don't really see it the same way. I kind of think that, if need be, you could kind of throw any player that is not terrible in their own end and throw them on the penalty kill and they'll do fine. Because I think, Josh Anderson wasn't always a penalty killer as when he was in Montreal.
No, he penalty killed. He was when he was in Columbus and he would never done it. And Marty St. Louis at the beginning of last season put him there to give him a little bit of more confidence and a little bit more ice time and keep him more involved. So you're not sitting for long stretches when he wasn't on the power play or on the PK, right? So there's times he'd sit. And it worked really well. And Josh Anderson became a really effective penalty killer. I think Brendan Gallagher could be a good penalty killer.
That's where I was going.
Being tenacious and winning puck battles and getting it down. You got Jake Evans, who he says he loves nothing more than, apart from scoring goals, than just icing the puck, especially at the Bell Center on a PK and hearing the fans go crazy when they ice it. So, penalty killing, a lot of it is just being tenacious and working hard and having a good system set up for it. They had a good system set up last year, obviously. 3 key guys from it are missing in Army and Dvorak and David Savard. But you're right. I think they have enough guys there that they can plug in. And as we mentioned, Josh Anderson wasn't a penalty killer with the Canadiens before last season and became a very good one.
Well, that's it. And it's just, it's very... It's interesting to me because that's how much Canadiens fans, they dive deep into things, is that you can't really have it all because, everyone not, he was very good at the second half of the season, especially in the playoffs. Christian Dvorak, he was very, very good, but let's not forget the first half of the season that he had that really left offensively something to be desired. And then once he gets let go, and of course the contract he got was the contract he got, and good for him.
Yeah, the Canadiens weren't going to pay him $5.4 million. That's
exactly.
And I'm sure the Canadiens would have liked to keep him if it were a more reasonable contract. And Ken Hughes spoke at his season news conference about how Dvorak had been injured. He had so many injuries since he had come here. In the last half of the season, he was healthy, and we saw the player that they had hoped he could be. But $5.4 million, you got to say, okay, thanks for your service. Good luck.
And enjoy your money.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So to me, it was just interesting that after so many offensive woes that he had in a Montreal Canadiens jersey, just everyone remembered that last little bit of the season of only the positives. And then he became this irreplaceable player. And, everyone was talking about how the loss of Yoel Armia, he was good. That he played good hockey the past 2 seasons after he was sent down to Laval. Yeah. But just because those guys played well, who's to say that this is what Martin St. Louis does? He makes players elevate a level. I think that's pretty clear at this point because he's the common denominator in all of these guys that were kind of sub-performers, and he's getting the best out, or at least trying to get the best out of all of them.
And they're replacing those 2 guys with younger guys, right? That's you gotta keep the young guys hungry, thinking there's going to be a spot for them on the team at some point. And Ken Hughes spoke about that also. When you bring a guy in, Logan Mayo, for example, when they brought in Bolduc, not Bolduc, they brought in Dobson, it was like, Mayo, okay, what's that mean for me? Well, it means you're getting traded, right? They moved them on. But that's something the Canadiens management keeps in the back of their mind when, you got to keep the young guys in Laval thinking that they still have a chance at some point to make this team. And then if they don't, then they did what they did with Logan Mayo, and they moved them and brought in, the Blues needed a defenseman. The Canadiens needed a forward who might provide some offense. It's one of those trades that could work out very well for both teams. Blues GM talked about how much he hated giving up Bolduc. What a good player he was, especially after Jimmy Montgomery came in last season to coach, talking about coaching and the impact they can have on a young player. They didn't want to give him up, but they needed defense. And so you got to give something to get something.
What will be interesting is to see the paths that they take with Owen Beck and Florian Jacki and some other players in Laval that, it's not to say that Joe Veleno took their spots. They're still going to have to fight for a spot. And, I'm still of the belief that Florian Jacki is going to do everything in his power to, like his brother did, to force his way onto this roster. I really do believe that. So it will be very interesting. Now, what does that mean for Joe Veleno if one of them, force their way onto the roster? That to me is very interesting.
This management team's shown that nothing's guaranteed, right? I mean, they basically tried to hand Joshua Roy a job last season, right? In training camp, and he failed, and Emil Heineman beat him out, and Heineman got the job. Now, Arber Xhekaj came in as an undrafted player, made the Canadiens. So they've shown in the past, like if Joe Veleno, if they don't think and it's a $900,000 salary, you can easily bury that down in the minors if you have to. They're obviously hoping they don't have to do that, but it just gives them more depth and more competition among young players, which is a good thing. We're talking about all these lines. We're not even mentioning Joshua Roy. He knows that. He knows that. Here's a guy who last season thought he was going to be on the team. And I saw an interview with him. He was at a golf tournament this week, and he was saying he realized he's got to get quicker. He's got to be better defensively. He knows what he's got to do, or you're not going to be in the NHL, right? You won't be with the Canadiens, and you might not be in the NHL. Talk about Joel Armia, being sent down to Laval. What a wake-up call that turned out to be for him. Right? You're looking at your career is going to be over probably. Now he's moved on. He's in LA, got a nice contract there. But yeah, Kapanen, Joshua Roy, Owen Beck, all these guys are coming to training camp wanting a job. So who are you going to beat out? And then it could be Joe Veleno. I mean, there's nothing. I wouldn't be shocked if the Joe Veleno started the season with the Laval Rocket. It's a possibility, right? Depending on how things go. They're obviously hoping that's not the case, but it's possible.
Yeah, and it's exciting because
they showed that with Armia. Sorry, they showed that with Armia when they cut him after training camp.
That's it.
Down to Laval.
Well, that's it. And it's exciting because this team, clearly something that they value is internal competition. So it's funny because they brought in these guys. They brought in a Joe Veleno, and we said, what did bringing in Noah Dobson mean for a Logan Mailloux? Well, it means you're getting traded. Just because they brought in a Joe Veleno. Joe Veleno isn't, with all due respect, I think he knows, given his contract that he signed, he's not a part of the core of this team. Will he try to work to do that? Sure. And, if he does, all the power to him. But it just demonstrates that, hey, we brought in a guy for some NHL experience, defensive specialist, because I think Owen Beck and Oliver Kapanen and Florian Jacki and whoever else on the Laval Rocket, they're all aware that it would be an incredibly tall task to ask them to fill in all these potential roles, because I think we will see Joe Veleno on a penalty kill at some point during the season. I think we will see all these guys in the bottom six taking on certain defensive roles that, frankly, I don't think that as much as their potential may be, that those three players that are Laval, probably poised to be Laval Rocket members at the start of this coming season, aren't ready to take.
Yeah, and as I say, with the depth wise, I mean, with Veleno, he's Florian Jacki is a center also, right? Canadian coming into training camp, I think they're going to give him a chance to make the team.
I think so too.
I mean, I think it's more likely he goes back to Laval for a second season, which wouldn't be horrible, for a development standpoint. But I'm sure when they meet with him or when they had their exit meetings, they were telling him, "Come back and show us at training camp. You deserve a spot."
I don't want to make these comparisons because it's not like I'm saying that he's going to be this player, but it's very interesting to see Florian Jacki's stat line, because I think it was Logan Mailloux who said with Tony, that he's going to fight to be in the NHL next year, because he had what did he score, 25 or 24 goals, none of them on the power play. They were all 5-on-5 or shorthanded. And who did that remind me of a guy who had to scratch and claw and fight his way into the NHL, who showed up one season at Canadiens training camp, but he was cut, is Brandon Hagel. And because Brandon Hagel last year scored, I think, 35 goals, and all, if not all but one, were at 5-on-5 or shorthanded. So if you're able to score 25 goals at a professional level as your first year playing,
a rookie, yeah, as a rookie in the AHL, that's a huge accomplishment, and not playing on the number one line either.
That's it. It's funny because in the playoffs, when I went to a bunch of games, my uncle and my cousin, they had never watched the Laval Rocket before. They're going, "Hey, where's Florian Jack?" I go, "He's on the third or fourth line," and they're like, "What? He's their leading scorer, third or fourth line?" I go, "Yeah, he's a good player, but he's a hard-nosed player. I really think that I'm sticking to my guns on that he's going to fight his way onto the roster this year."
Well, it's also that mix of youth and experience that Hughes and Gordon have both spoken about, right? And Veleno has NHL experience, and obviously Florian Jacquet doesn't, right? So that's the advantage, the big advantage of Veleno has going into camp is that he's played in the NHL. They've seen what he can, what he can't do, but it also, as I said, as you mentioned, creates internal competition,
which is a big value of this team. Stu, we did it. It is July 18th with a bone dry news feed because, Tony was on with the newest member of the Canadiens a couple days ago, and he was on with Logan Mailloux with a bone dry news feed. We did it. We put together what I think was some quality analysis and what could be for the upcoming season for the Montreal Canadiens. So, Stu, finally, I could say, enjoy the great outdoors this weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Looking forward to it. All right, you
enjoy.
Too.
That is Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon for Shane Gaumont back at Master Control. We'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVita.tb. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.